Welcome to the Human Flourishing Project. I'm Alex Epstein. This is going to be a very short episode because my voice is pretty shot. I've learned lately that my way of speaking irritates my throat. That's why I've had some ongoing throat issues, and I'm going to get some therapy for it, which is supposedly going to clear it up entirely. I'm very excited about what my new voice or my real voice sounds like. But for now, I need to rest it a decent amount. So this is going to be a short episode, but I wanted to make sure we had some episode because I like doing these every 2 weeks. And I know a lot of you are looking forward to these episodes. Okay, so today's subject, by the way, Happy New Year, is lessons from work fortnights. Lessons from work fortnights. So work fortnights is in contrast to work weeks. Work week is the normal thing where you work 5 days and then 2 days. Lately, I have been experimenting with, and I did this once before in the past and had mixed results, but I decided to do it again with 11 days on and 3 days off. So I'm calling it a work fortnight. I guess technically work fortnight would be working 14 days straight, but I'm thinking in terms of these fortnights. So fortnights being 2 weeks or 14 days. So I want to say that it's lessons from work fortnights. I'm not advocating work fortnights. I'm not sure how long I will continue doing them, although there's a chance I'll do them for a long time. But I just want to make clear, I'm not recommending this practice for most people, but I think that working and planning in this way certainly has some lessons to it that can be derived from it, rather, that can be applied to any kind of work schedule. Now, I should say before I go into those lessons, I think it is possible to do this even if you have kids. So if you think, basically it's working Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, then Saturday, Sunday, then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then taking off Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and then resuming it again on the subsequent Monday. So if you have kids or social life and you feel like, oh, I can't take a full weekend off, one thing you can do is just work until early afternoon on both of those days. So let's say you work till one, like for me, I work until 1 on the Saturday, and on the Sunday I have a little bit more flexibility, but sometimes I'll still have some social things on the Sunday, but I still have a good, and I wake up quite early. I wake up at 5:30 and often start writing between 7 and 8. So it still gives me a really good chunk of time, which is totally different work-wise than not working at all that day. So just that's one qualification some of you might want to keep in mind if you yourself want to play with a work fortnight. So let's talk about what are some of the benefits I've found from this that then can, if we can isolate these benefits, we can think about just how to get them even on other work schedules. So one big benefit is continuity. And this is a broad concept that has a lot of different aspects to it. So I'll talk about it broadly first and then a narrower aspect of it. When you're working 5 days and then taking 2 days off and then 5 days and 2 days off, you might find that, man, on Wednesday or Thursday or Friday, I just got in the groove. Certainly with the longer projects, like, there were some interruptions earlier in the week, or I had some false steps, but now I'm really into it and I feel like, oh, I could go another day or two, but I have, or maybe even 3 or 4, and I'm on this roll, and but I have a weekend now, and I like weekends, but I'm still thinking about this, and it's hard to totally forget about it, and am I going to lose some of the context? And I'll talk more about that in a second. And so when you have 11 days to work with, even if you only get into your groove a couple days in, you still have 8, 9 days of solid work. So for example, I'm editing my book right now. And for those of you who are interested in, my deadline with my publisher of the manuscript is March 2nd, and it's a hard deadline, and I am completely on track. So they will definitely get it by then. I'm very excited about this, but I've been working work fortnights in part motivated by this book. And when I'm editing these chapters, it's great to just have that continuity of 11 days in a row. Usually the first day of the work fortnight, I'm doing more planning. I don't do as much writing or editing, but then I can for the rest of it, I can do quite a bit of that every single day. And it enables me to keep more of the whole context of things. And then the aspect I want to talk about is I think it allows more complex chunks of work. At least this is my suspicion and experience so far, just because, okay, if I have 10 days to work on something, I have 10 days where if I'm not stopping working, there's a context building up in my head where I'm still carrying things that I figured out 9 days ago, 8 days ago. And that is, or in the case I'm on day 7 at the moment, so let's say 5 or 6 days ago, when I stop work, there's something where I lose that continuity, I lose that context. So I do think it is easier to work on like truly complex things if I have more continuity than a general work week allows. Now, if we just think about how to apply this to other things, one way to do it, although it might not be ideal for many of you, and it doesn't happen to be ideal for me, is to give yourself flexibility on certain work days to work into the night indefinitely. And I have a friend who's very, very productive, and this is what he does. He's almost religiously enforces his weekends and takes the total weekend off every week. But any given day, he allows himself to work as late as he wants. And so he gets an incredible amount of continuity because he's getting these huge chunks of work done every day. And he can work until 8 o'clock, and then he can wake up, and then he can be thinking about it. So if that can work well too. Now, I think with different kinds of family obligations, and if you have kids, that one is going to be even considerably harder than taking a good chunk of the weekend and say the mornings to work. But just for those of you whom it might help, I wanted to mention that. Another benefit of work fortnights is lower planning overhead. So I find that on the work fortnight, I am planning, I'm planning 11 days. I'm basically planning 2 weeks instead of planning 5 days / 1 week. And listeners of the show know that I am a big fan of what I call calendar comprehensiveness. So making sure that everything I want to do is actually in the calendar. And I find that incredibly valuable, makes it so much easier to execute, but it does take quite a bit of thought. And I really like being able to do that in a day or less than a day at the beginning of the work fortnight and then being able to execute for almost a 2-week period versus doing it versus doing it twice in 2 weeks. I realize I am not living up to my vow to rest my voice here, so I'm going to go through the rest of the points more quickly. So there's a lower planning overhead, and this is something even when we are thinking about planning, even if we're just working on a regular week, we can think about, okay, what is the most efficient way to plan where I have calendar comprehensiveness, but I minimize my overhead. Another benefit of work fortnights, and particularly planning them, is I find it's easier to say no to things. When I'm looking 2 weeks out, I'm really thinking about that time as incredibly valuable. I have a few projects that I'm focused on, and every bit of that time I look at and I can use, and I'm thinking in terms, I'm really filling that up with stuff already. So if somebody asks me to do something that doesn't really make sense for me to do, it's that much easier for me to say no to it because I'm thinking farther out and planning more deliberately farther out. So I'm crowding out things that aren't really in my interest to do. And then I just have this more of a long-term awareness that, hey, that thing in the future, that sounds easy to do now, that's going to be a work fortnight and I'm not going to want to do it. So let's just say no to that thing. So anything that helps you say no to things is good. As I talked about on the episode, no means yes. That is an elevated skill to say no to the right things, which then I'd say the more successful you become, the more opportunity you generate, the more you need to get good at saying no to things. The final benefit I want to talk about with work fortnights is that the break involved, the 3-day break, and that's just my way of doing it, but the 3-way break is a much more genuine break than the 2-day break. I find it's almost a difference of kind, and I am very curious. Once I'm done with this book, I may well experiment with 10 and 4. because then I would be getting, the 2 weekend days each weekend, but in 4, and I really think I could do some fun stuff with 4 days consecutively every 2 weeks. That excites me a lot just now thinking about it. But for now, 3 I really like. There's something about 3 where I can, the middle day especially, I feel like I can really totally relax then versus I have work the next day. And then the beginning of the Sunday and most of the Sunday, I can be totally relaxed. Now, toward the end of the Sunday, I'm starting to think about work on the Monday, but if I have the Monday set up as more of a planning day, then even then I don't really have to think about work too much until that Monday. So there's just something about 3 days that really allows me to rejuvenate more than 2 days. Now, this could totally vary for different people, but I think a lesson here is that it's good to figure out how to make time off really be time off. Allow that kind of full disconnect. And so the experience of the 3-day break can help inform the 2-day break. Another thing about 3-day breaks, and certainly applies to longer breaks, is that it makes possible traveling. To travel is very hard to do in 2 days. Now, 3 days, one can't do that much, but say I'm on the West Coast, I could go to Mexico, I could go to Utah to snowboard, I could go to Denver, Colorado, I could go to pretty much any place in California. So Pacific Northwest isn't too bad either. So it allows that kind of thing. And so if I want to go with my girlfriend on a trip, or the last one we went to was Vegas, and to not to gamble, as somebody joked to me, but we did a bunch of cool outdoor stuff like ATVs and horseback riding, and we could totally do that. That was a 3-day end of fortnight thing, and it worked really well, and we could fit in a ton. Whereas 2 days, too much of the time would be eaten up by traveling. The experience and the location itself would be rushed. So another way in which 3 is better than 2, but the more I think about it, 4 is better than 3. So maybe in March, I will start with the working fortnights, the 10 and 4. If any of you are in a position to try that out, or any of you are already trying it out, let me know how that is working for you, and I will be excited to hear about it. Okay, let me wrap up the show. I meant to go about 5 minutes. Now looks like I'm close to 14 minutes. So I apologize to my own voice. I hope the rest of you benefited, where my voice will slightly suffer. Let's see, anything else? Well, just again, Happy New Year. Hope you have been enjoying the show lately. I'd say the episodes before this one, the 3 before this one, so the one on how to spend time, the one on performance time and feedback time, and then the one on the 6 types of focus. I think those are 3 of my favorite episodes I've done in a while in terms of capturing a lot of what I think goes into relaxed productivity and flourishing more broadly. So if you haven't heard those, definitely check them out if you tend to like the rest of the show. All right. As always, if you have any questions, comments, love mail, or hate mail, you can email me at alex@alexepstein.com. To get the bi-weekly updates when the show comes out, go to humanflourishingproject.com. And to discuss any of these topics on Facebook, go to facebook.com/humanflourishingproject. All right. I'll be back in 2 weeks. Until then, enjoy the new year. I'm Alex Epstein. This has been the Human Flourishing Project.